This is Frank Islam, Chairman and CEO of FY Investment Group and your host of Washington Current Review, where we interview leading voices from business and politics that impact you, the viewer. Today, our guest is Attorney Bagshi. See, he's an attorney. He also worked for the Democratic National Committee. So tell me a little bit about yourself and what's your role at the Democratic National Committee?
Sure. So my name is K J Bagshi, and thank you for having me here today.
You're most welcome.
So what I do for the DNC is I'm their director of AAPI.
Okay. Explain to the audience what AAPI stands for.
Sure. So AAPI stands for Asian American Pacific Islander. And so it's a broad community. We're talking about 50 plus countries, right, ethnicities that are coming under one umbrella.
Sure.
So my role at the DNC, first and foremost, is to make sure that we are at the table, that I'm a voice for my, our community. And beyond that, the important role I have is to make sure that the Democratic Party's message is resonating with our community, far and wide, through every corner of our, community.
So that's what you do for the DNC,
That's
for the
what I do for the
National
DNC,
Committee.
right? Yep.
My question to you is, what do you think are big issues for the Asian American community besides immigration, equality, the middle class, income? List goes on and on.
Right, the list does go on and on. I think what's important to understand is that AAPI issues are American issues, right, first and foremost. And so what's the huge issue, in America right now? Jobs and economy, right? We're looking at a president, we're fortunate, who has, helped us create 71 straight months of job growth, who has cut
Turn around the economy. Economy was the brink of bankruptcy.
Exactly, right.
When he took over from George W. Bush.
Exactly.
We got out of the war.
Yes.
From Afghanistan and Iraq also.
Exactly. So we were able to, for the jobs and the economy, the president has done a great job, and it's important in my role to make sure that our community is constantly aware of that. I think other issues that are critical for our community would be, I'd say, education, right? The future of our generation, the future of our, children and so on, and focusing on that. And finally, I would say immigration is still a critical issue for our country.
So I'll get back to the immigration. There's a lot of
Sure.
talks about immigrations in terms of the Hispanic American community.
Right.
As you know, the immigration reform, the comprehensive immigration reform was passed by the United States Senate.
Mm-hmm.
It went to the House and died.
Right.
Nothing has happened so far.
It died because the Republican leadership failed to take action on it.
They did, and I don't know why they did. They did, and now they're running for the elections,
Right.
and they probably should be aware that's very important for the Hispanic community, for the also Asian community. Why they're doing what they did is not where I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is why this issue is important to Asian Americans also.
Yeah. So I think when we hear in the media, when we talk about immigration, a lot of the focus is on undocumented immigrants, right? Which does affect our community. We're looking at
Path to citizenship is also an issue for them?
It is an issue, isn't it? It is an issue. So for undocumented immigrants in our community, we're looking at, the last number I saw was about 1.5 million AAPI undocumented immigrants. So that pathway to citizenship.
1.5 million, and out of what?
Out of 11 million, that's the number I'm looking at.
AAPI is 11 million communities.
No, so the entire number, right, of undocumented
Oh,
immigrants.
okay, I got it.
I'm saying at least 10% of that,
Yeah.
right, about 1.5 million, are focused on our communities. So the idea of a pathway to citizenship is, of course, critical, right? But beyond that, I think what the big issue for our community is the family visa backlog, family reunification, right? The time it takes to bring our, a naturalized API citizen to bring his or her, sibling over or other family members over is
Why do
taking
you
years.
think we should bring the brothers and sisters who are not even qualified in this country to get a job?
Why do I believe?
Well, I can understand that you have a spouse that should be coming, and that's one thing what immigration reform did.
Right. What? So I'm sorry. What's the question? Why?
The question
should we
is
bring siblings over?
why a person who's a United States citizen take about 13 years to sponsor their sibling, which is brothers and mothers and the parents and so on and so forth. I can understand parents, and I can understand your spouse, but why brothers and sisters? Why do they have to come here?
I think part of the American dream is that you can come to this country, you can build roots, you can have.
So why not
access to
cousin? Why not
opportunity.
a second cousin, third cousin, or fourth cousin? This
look,
can go on and on.
I may be an attorney, but I'm not an immigration law expert,
That's
so I
good.
can't talk to you about all the nuances of that. But I do think that the American dream is the idea that if we come to this country, we contribute. You come through legal channels. You are able to build.
Do you know how long it
your
takes for a
family.
brother and sisters
It
to
takes-
be
it takes quite a long
13
time.
to 15 years?
Right. I mean, I think one number I saw was talking about folks from the Philippines. It takes about 25 years to bring their
Okay, I
family
was
over.
talking about the India because the people who are born in India.
Right.
Is it in the Philippines? About if you are born in Philippines, if you
Yeah.
want to bring your brother or sister in this country, it's 25 years.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about, again, for me, my focus is looking at the AAPI community, in addition to just looking at our sort of South Asian communities, I'm looking overall, and it is despite the diversity within our communities under the AAPI umbrella, this is one unifying issue, family visa backlog. And you're only hearing Democratic candidates talk about a comprehensive immigration approach.
Which they passed in the United States Senate.
In the Senate, they did, on a bipartisan basis. But again, this election cycle, which is what I'm here to talk about, right, are Democratic candidates who are running at the national level. You're only hearing them talk about a comprehensive approach.
Not the other side of the aisle.
On the other side, all you're hearing them talk about are building walls. You're hearing them talk about excluding our folks. They're talking about division. And that is why, one of the big reasons why I'm a Democrat is because I do believe that diversity is something that is a source of strength.
Democracy, diversity is a strength that binds us together.
It is. It's a source of strength.
So the question to you is, I'll get to the question of political process.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about the ugly and intolerant and angry face of America on the other side of the aisle, who wants to build a wall between the United States and Mexico, and who wants to ban the Muslims, who want to ban the minorities, who build this country. And Mr. Trump, who said that, and I have a lot of respect for Mr. Donald Trump, he forgot the fact that his mother was also an immigrant who came from Scotland. And so did Ted Cruz, who was born not in this country but Canada, with the parents were Cuban. And so is Marco Rubio, whose parents came to this country and they were Cuban.
Right.
So the America provided them the letters of opportunity to succeed.
Right.
Now they're against all these things. Why is that?
I'm not
I guess you're not going to speak on their behalf.
I'm not a mind reader, and I'm not here to try to understand their intentions and so on. But I'm just saying what you're hearing from our side of the aisle versus what you're hearing from their side, the rhetoric is very different.
Well, why are they doing well in the poll, obviously, among certain constituency who are frightened, who have anxiety, who are uneducated, who are middle class?
I think they're doing well with certain constituencies within their own party, right?
Yes.
But when we talk about a broad base, when we're looking at independent voters and so on, I don't think they're doing as well. I mean, the last polls of, for both our candidates against their front runner, they both end up winning. So again, I think when you're looking, hate will always be, defeated by the idea of unification and unity, and that's what our party stands for.
So the political process has become so divisive. It's a sad and sorry spectator game.
It is. I don't think it should be a spectator game.
But that's what it has become.
I think it should be and that's what I'm focusing on this role.
We should be united together with a common goal.
Yeah.
And because we have shared goals and shared responsibility and shared interests and shared values.
We do, yeah.
And those are the values that you believe in and as being a Democrat.
I do, yes.
Okay. So let me talk about Asian Americans are politically that much engaged and involved. I mean, you have two governors, one from South Carolina, one from Louisiana, and they have done a good job for themselves, obviously. And also, there are a lot of people in the Obama administration, they're Asian American, which is good, but they're not elected, and Congressman Bera is one. The question to you is, tell the audience why that Asian Americans should be involved, why should they give money to the politicians, what's in it for them?
Right. So I think at the end of the day, it's about voice. It's about what kind of voice do you want in your political system? What kind of voice do you want in your own party and in your government, right?
So this is how the democracy grows, and that's creates the.
I think the easiest way.
Does it create a common cause for us to bind us together so we can build country for all, not the selected few?
Exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that's great. I think you're putting it very eloquently. You're doing my job for me here.
That's okay.
But I'm saying that I think it's also about the easiest way that you can participate. The easiest way you can show voice in an election is just to vote, right? So that's the first thing.
So that's the first thing.
That's the
vote.
first step.
Then what's the second step?
And other ways if there are other ways to show support for candidates and so on, and if that comes through
You're talking about the individual candidate.
Yeah, the individual candidates who are speaking to your values, and I would argue strongly that those are the Democratic candidates in this election cycle, then that's another way to express your speech. That's another way to express your voice in this election cycle. But what you're hearing a lot from the other side, and what's disappointing, is that the rhetoric is so exclusive, right?
The tone is very troubling.
It's very troubling, and it's also focused, a lot. Before, I think our community wasn't really didn't really have a target.
Someone said, and I don't know how to say that thing, but I don't know. I don't want to quote that. They're frightened, and in terms of because they talk about our darkest past and also our unjust past.
Yeah. So I think
We don't want to go back 100 years ago, right?
I think what the GOP is guilty of is treating Asian Americans like the perpetual foreigner, right?
So you just think that what about in general they don't treat the immigrant community very well? Is that what you're saying?
They don't, but again, my focus being on the AAPI community, right? Like you have a rally in Iowa where Donald Trump, where a Korean American student asks a legitimate question about foreign policy, and Donald Trump's reaction is, "Wait, where are you from? Were you born there? Were you born here?" That's the type of rhetoric. That's the type of thinking from that side. That we are constantly outsiders. That we are not ingrained. We are not part of our system.
So they represent a very intolerant face of America.
I would say that it's a very exclusive. It's not inclusive, and that's what the Democratic Party is. The Democratic Party is a big tent party, multiple voices. We all come in different, shapes.
We all immigrant.
And different ideas.
We came from a different world.
Of course.
We have people from every end of the earth in this nation.
We do. I mean, I myself, right, was, the son of immigrants, and the opportunities I had, were beneficial.
My other question to you is on the same topic.
Yeah.
You did not talk about why should we give money to politicians? You can give your time, you can give your talent, but the financial help is important to them.
I think whatever way you want to express your voice or your support for candidates that express your views, and I would argue here today that the Democratic candidates are the ones who can express that voice the best for you. Whatever way you want to show that support, that's up to you as an individual. And I think what is great about our party is that you don't necessarily have to only be part of like the 1% to necessarily have a voice or have a say in your party. The Democratic Party, we have a huge wavelength, right? A huge spectrum. But we are at the end of the day a grassroots organization. We are a grassroots community. And so my job when I talk to folks in different parts of this country, it's not only the sort of heads of their communities because they're business leaders and so on. They're important, right? It's important to have them as well. But they're also folks who are just grassroots leaders. They're folks who are leading up charges to bring exposure to issues such as, whether it be something like domestic violence, whether it be something like immigration reform. These are folks who are just in their communities, bringing people together, and when we speak to them and find ways that we can get them involved in our party, they're more than excited to do so, because at the end of the day, that's what we are. We're a grassroots community.
You do know that 72% of the Asian Americans vote Democrat. I believe the 67 is 72%, which is the highest in terms of the ethnic minority population that they vote. So the question is, why is that? Obviously, they have a shared interest and shared values. Why is that? Would that trend continue?
I think so. I think what's important to first point out is that APIs about 20 years ago were voting in large numbers for the Republican Party. Clearly something happened. In 2012, about 73% of APIs voted for the president's re-election. This is 2012. This is
2012,
okay. 2012, we had 73% AAPI folks came out, helped the president get reelected. That was more than the Latino community.
I hope they will continue on that path forward.
I hope so too, and that's why I'm here talking to you, right? Trying to get the message out. And I think at the end of the day, democratic policies resonate strongly with our community, right? But it's also about the rhetoric that gets you to those policies. And if you are trying to create, level-headed, reasonable policy change, but when you talk about the people that those policies are going to affect as part of that decision, right? You're thinking of them, you're empathetic towards those folks. That is much more important, I would argue. Having that empathy, having the understanding of who you're going to affect, respecting those individuals, and then pushing towards that important policy. And you see that on our side. And that's the data, right? You look, again, 20 years ago, API folks would vote for the GOP, overwhelmingly so, and then slowly a shift happened. And it's happening cross-generationally. It's not just folks who recently immigrated, it's people who have been here for multiple generations as well. So I think we will continue to do that. I think we'll build on that. And I believe that, the GOP, frankly, is making my job very easy this time around, when they're talking about building a wall,
because of their
banning Muslims and so on.
Which is very troubling.
Yes, it is troubling. But they also have no policies to back up.
Well, they don't talk about issues and policies in the debate. They, at least that's the impression that people get. I've not watched it. They insult each other rather than talking about the issues and challenges that we face in America and how you're going to be solving those problems for American people.
I believe, I would say if you watch a Democratic debate, it's a conversation between adults.
It should
and when you
be.
watch the Republican debates,
it
is a lot of name calling. They're saying inappropriate, making inappropriate references and so on. And you don't see that from our side. So
So my question to you is one of the issue that's important to the Asian American is building the middle class to make sure they can realize the American dream.
Yeah.
And the second issue is that we're all facing in America is the injustice, inequality in America that's rising. The rich is getting richer, poor is getting poorer. So what's your thoughts on it that the Democratic Party needs to do? Obviously, as you know, Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders both have embraced that. This is very important to the Democratic Party. What kind of things are do you hear this kind of problems also when you have a focus group and when you talk to the people about it's not the income inequality injustice in America, it's the opportunity inequality, it's a gender inequality, the list goes on and on.
Right.
So what's your thoughts on that?
I think like we talked about at the beginning of this conversation, right? What are the important issues for APIs? And the first thing I said is just like cross-constituency based in the American population, it is the idea of jobs and economy.
Sure.
And again, when you have a president who's been able to increase job growth.
Right, well, our employment rate is the lowest it's ever been in the history for many, many, many years.
Right.
But it has really not reached it to the people who are
there's
who are the lower echelon of the drug.
Right.
So that's obviously a concern to all of us.
No, it definitely is. And again, it's like the idea when you have.
And I know the Democratic Party really cares about it.
We do, but again, when you talk about look at the Republican parties, they constantly talk about undoing the policies of the last two cycles of the administration.
An Affordable Care Act is a good, bright example. So how many times they have to undo it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's when we look at our party, we talk about access. I like using the word access as a key word. Access to healthcare, access to education, access to jobs, and that's what our party continually
and the climate change and environment.
Right, and to, of course, find policies that will, keep that under control.
Is there any issue among the Asian American community with regard to the foreign policy also, in addition to the domestic policy?
No, I think, again, the Democratic Party, the candidates that we're seeing are bringing forward foreign policy that is level-headed and so on. Like I said, the foreign policy, the experts are out there, I'll let them speak to it. But again, when you talk about candidates who talk about working with our allies versus the other side of the aisle that constantly talks about shaking their fist, the way they talk about dealing with, some of our other countries as if they're, just going to walk in there with a lot of bravado and make things happen.
It's not really a partnership.
Again, it's the idea about like two adults having a conversation, right, about the future of our country and about a number of other individuals who make inappropriate comments, demean each other, and demean the American people.
It's a demonizing.
I would say so, yeah. I'd argue so.
So the question to you also is, we talked about our political process. If a young person in the audience wants to be politically involved in the Democratic Party, that, as you represent, how would they get involved, and why should they get involved, and what do they need to do?
Yeah. So I'm proud that last month we launched Progress AAPI, which is the DNC's
Can you tell the audience a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So Progress AAPI is the DNC's engagement brand for our community in this election cycle. And what we do through Progress AAPI is we are creating programs, trainings, and conversations that are meant to empower our community through all sort of, cross-generationally. So one way that we've been focusing on AAPI youth is, again, because we understand their strong presence on social media, is we've been putting together social media rapid response teams. So these are folks who are, on their college campuses but are interested and want to get involved, and we simply give them the information. This is what we're hearing from the Republican side.
So that allows them to become active participants.
It allows them, right, exactly.
If somebody wants to get involved in the DNC as well as the political process at the local level, the grassroots levels, the national levels, and the state level, how do the DNC can help and how they contact you?
Well, they can contact me, right?
Yeah, tell them how to.
So there are two main ways to get in touch with me. The first is if you can follow us on Twitter, AAPI Dems. And AAPI Dems,
okay.
Right. And then also we have a sign-up sheet. It's my.democrats.org/progress AAPI. And that's a very easy way to get on our newsletter, hear information about what we're doing. And you can also email us at aapidems@dnc.org. And that way we can, again, link you in, loop you in where we need to, and get you involved. So spread the word.
And it's all over the world.
It's all over.
Excuse me, United States.
You're right.
Yeah, I don't mean to go to the world.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, because the Democratic Party is a national party.
Right.
we talked about the issues and challenges that Asian Americans face and how do you get involved politically. We do have some leaders, and the two governors, they're Republican. Obviously, they were not a Democrat. So the question to you is, who are the Asian American leaders that you look to locally and nationally?
Well, so I'd point out that, I think you're referring to Bobby Jindal as one of the governors. He's no longer governor of Louisiana, so we just have one.
He basically, he did not inherit, but also he left with the highest deficit in the history of Louisiana, as I understand.
I'm not an expert.
I don't really know anything
Louisiana
about
politics.
it. I heard about it. Yeah.
So I'm just saying that currently,
go ahead.
when you look at their bench versus ours, right? When you look at members of Congress, every voting member of the API community, API members of Congress are all Democrats. When you look at this election cycle, we have 4 or 5 South Asian candidates running on the Democratic ticket
in the House
to try to get into Congress. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And then you have also Kamala Harris, who's running for Senate,
and she got a pretty good shot, but she's only half.
she's still,
but you probably own it anyway. You still see.
I think she would identify as
herself an API,
right, and I think she's part of the community as well. And I think so when we look to our bench again, they're all identifying with the Democratic Party, and I think we're going to continue to see that. But other folks, we look to our leaders in Congress to help us, reach out to their communities, identify their leaders. There are also a lot of mayors. Right, throughout the country. Mayor Ed Lee from San Francisco is a great. Mayor Jason Poo from the San Gabriel area.
Okay.
He's been helpful as well.
Okay.
In Los Angeles City Council, David Ryu. Right, he's a newly elected member out there, and he's been engaged in his community. And these are the folks we're looking at. Again, the beautiful thing about the Democratic Party is that you can be active at the local level, and you can find a way into the party, and the party will embrace your ideas as long as you are able to kind of build out. Build and grow those policy issues that are important to all of us.
So what's the final word to you before we depart from this interview to our audience?
Yeah, I think what's critical is this is a
very important election.
Yes, this is a very important election. This is the year to get involved.
And we need your help, right?
Yes, we need your help. So please sign up, and you can continue to hear from our what we're doing at the DNC. But be engaged, pay attention to it. And like I said, my job has been a lot easier this cycle because of the rhetoric coming from the other side. But pay attention to it and get involved, whatever.
And make sure we go vote.
Yes, make sure you vote in November. And if you are in a primary or a caucus state, I don't know if you have any caucus states left.
Well, we don't have Virginia. We already finished. Maryland is coming up.
Right. So make sure you vote.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming, though, and thank you for all you do to serve our country and our community. Thank you. Continue your good work. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Frank.
And that is our show. This is Frank Islam wishing you a great week. Thank you for watching.